Imagine waking up one morning and seeing thousands of people dressed as cockroaches marching with flowers in their hands demanding accountability from the government. Sounds bizarre, right? But that's exactly what happened recently when the self-styled Cockroach Janta Party gathered at Delhi's Jantar Mantar. Wearing cockroach masks, students and young professionals protested against alleged irregularities in the examinations and recruitment processes, turning an insect into a symbol of frustration against a system they believe has ignored them for too long. And while the Cockroach Janta Party may seem unusual, India's history of protest is filled with demonstrations that were far stranger, more dramatic, and sometimes downright unbelievable. From carrying human skulls to eating rats, from shaving heads to staging mock funerals, Indians have repeatedly shown that when conventional protests fail, creativity takes over. Hi, this is Shrey, and today in Power Play Politics, we are looking at some of the weirdest protests India has witnessed since independence. Let's begin with the newest entrant. The Cockroach Janta Party or CJP emerged as a youth-driven movement protesting issues surrounding examinations such as NEET, SSC CUET and other recruitment processes. Protesters adopted the cockroach as their symbol, arguing that like cockroaches, ordinary citizens survive despite being ignored, crushed or overlooked by the system. Hundreds gathered at Jantar Mantar wearing masks and raising slogans demanding accountability and reforms. Whether one agrees with their methods or not, the imagery worked. Within hours, social media was flooded with pictures of masked protesters, politics once again proving that in modern era, symbolism can often be as powerful as slogans. But compared to what India has seen before, this could only be the beginning. If there is one protest that shocked the nation, it was the demonstration by farmers from Tamil Nadu in 2017. Led by farmer P. Ayakanu, the farmers arrived in Delhi carrying human skulls. And these were not props. The protesters claimed the skulls belonged to farmers who had died by suicide amid severe agrarian distress and mounting debt. Their objective was simple: force the nation to confront a crisis that they believed was being ignored. The images were impossible to ignore. Farmers sat at Jantar Mantar holding skulls in their hands, wearing garlands made from bones, and demanding drought relief, loan waivers, and better support for agriculture. When the demands failed to receive the response they expected, the same Tamil Nadu farmers escalated the demonstration. Several protesters stripped naked and marched through the streets of Delhi. Their message was stark: we have lost everything. The naked protest was intended to symbolize desperation and economic ruin. Farmers argued that they had been stripped of their dignity by debt, drought and neglect. The unusual protest generated enormous media attention and became one of the most talked about demonstrations of the decade. But they weren't done yet. In one of the most astonishing forms of protest seen in modern India, these Tamil Nadu farmers appeared with dead snakes and rodents as part of their agitation. The symbolism was grim. They claimed that the drought had become so severe that farmers were being pushed towards conditions where survival itself had become uncertain. The shocking visuals sparked debates across television channels and social media, with some criticizing the methods, while others argued that extreme distress often leads to extreme demonstrations. The questions many asked was simple: if carrying skulls and marching naked were not enough to attract attention, what would be? Across India, mock funerals have become a recurring form of political protest. Whether against rising fuel prices, poor governance, corruption, or local administrative decisions, protesters have often carried symbolic coffins or conducted funeral processions for policies they oppose. The idea is straightforward: If a policy is harming public welfare, then the protesters symbolically declare it dead. Over the decades, political parties across ideologies have used this tactic. The images are dramatic, television-friendly, and instantly understandable to ordinary citizens. A funeral procession needs no explanation. Another uniquely Indian protest method has been mass head shaving. Government employees, students, unemployed youth, and farmers have repeatedly shaved their heads in public to demonstrate humiliation, grief, or frustration. The act carries deep cultural significance. In many Indian traditions, shaving one's head is associated with mourning. When protesters shave their head collectively, they are essentially declaring that hope itself has died. The visual impact is powerful. Hundreds of people sitting together and losing their hair in public creates an image that newspapers and television cameras cannot easily ignore. Then there come begging protests. Various groups across the country have resorted to begging on streets while carrying placards. Teachers, farmers, government employees, and contractual workers have all used this method at different times. Their message? If the system cannot provide us with fair wages or livelihoods, perhaps we should start begging. It is a form of satire, but one rooted in economic anxiety. The protest transforms personal hardship into public theatre. Indian politics have also seen politicians and activists use donkeys as symbols of protest. In various states, protesters have garlanded donkeys, named them after rival politicians, or staged marches involving the animals. The purpose is usually to ridicule opponents and attract media coverage. While critics often dismiss such demonstrations as political gimmicks, they remain highly effective in generating headlines. And in politics, attention is often half the battle. Now, here's the bigger question. Why does India witness so many unusual protests? The answer lies in visibility. India is a nation of more than 1 billion people. Every day, thousands of demonstrations take place. Most receive little attention. To stand out, protesters often rely on symbolism, spectacle, and shock value. A conventional memorandum submitted to an office rarely makes headlines. A man carrying skulls, dressed as a cockroach, or shaving his head in public certainly does. In many ways, these protests reflect a competition for public attention. The stranger the visual, the greater the chances that the cameras will arrive. From cockroach masks at Jantar Mantar to skulls carried by distressed farmers, India's protest culture has repeatedly shown that democracy is not always expressed through speeches and slogans. Sometimes it carries a skull, sometimes it stages a funeral, and sometimes it does whatever it takes to make sure the country pays attention. Because in a democracy of this scale, being heard is often the hardest battle of all. So if you enjoyed this deep dive into India's most unusual protests, share, subscribe, and follow News Ei Samay.